Hail cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Still smarting from that Ollie Watkins transfer, I'll be honest with you, Josh. But
I thought about you. I did think about you yesterday morning.
Yeah, we have a lot of supportive listeners out there. You know, you had a poor game week last week, and a lot of people are reaching out, checking on Josh. Is he okay?
Poor Josh. Poor Josh. How's he doing?
I was getting so
fine.
many comments, especially from our Patreon supporters, checking in on Ollie Watkins. So I'm officially changing Carlton Morris's name to Morris, More-is, because what we need from him against Burnley is more. Now, I'm just like a never say never sort of fantasy manager, and I believe it is within the realm of possibility. It is, to be clear, extremely unlikely that Morris gets an additional bonus point, 2 more goals, and 2 more assists. And I think he also has to catch a fly ball in his hand.
Yeah, the fact that he, exactly, like a Paul O'Neill style. I think that the him scoring the goal stopped that from being like an all-time bad transfer, right? I think. But I little micro story here. I not to brag or anything, but I did an 8 a.m. workout yesterday, Brandon, and the early matches kick off at 7:30 here in the U.S., at least in the East Coast. And I checked my phone right before it started, and I saw that Ollie Watkins had scored a goal, and I was like, because that kind of immediately meant a Stupinan clean sheet gone and Watkins goal, which is just I wasn't even thinking about you at that moment, Brandon. I was just thinking about, I was like, well, how many people own this guy? And I was like, you know what? I just got to put this aside. I got to do this workout. And I was like, he's like a 1 goal kind of guy. So that'll be fine. Workout ends. It's an hour workout. It's a longie, Brandon, a longie, but a goodie. And I get out and I'm like, wait a second. What just happened here?
Record scratch.
Record scratch. Watkins on a hat trick. Watkins with 2 assists. A Stupinan with an own goal. A Stupinan subbed at the 45th minute, which actually in the end was a relief. We got saved.
Could have got worse
by that. Yeah, it could have been worse, but we saved a point.
Yeah.
So and you had transferred Ollie Watkins out for Morris. I think a lot, many had or would have, if they hadn't moved him for Morris, they would have moved him for Alvarez a couple of weeks ago, right? And so obviously his ownership is still, I think, something like 20%. So not crazy low. One of the top probably 5 most owned players, most owned forwards, but low enough that it wasn't like a devastator. But I think the fact that what is it, 25 points? I mean, it's one of the most high scoring points totals you'll ever see from a fantasy player.
He's now the leading scorer in the entire fantasy game.
It's amazing
right now.
And the joke with him for weeks was this guy is just getting you 5 points every single week. There's nothing wrong with 5 points, but it's like, could we trade him in for someone a little more explosive, someone a little more exciting? And he's just ticking along. Obviously got the goal and 3 bonus last
23
week.
23 points was the full tally. And I mean, I don't feel... Obviously, it would be ideal to have Ollie Watkins to get goals from both Alvarez and Morris. That makes that feel better. And also, I think it's one of those fantasy transfers where you have to look back and say, what was my logic? Was it flawed from the start? And with Carlton Morris scoring that goal, I firmly say no, it wasn't flawed from the very start, because who would have predicted? Certainly, you would predict Villa maybe win that game. Ollie Watkins scores in that game. But who would predict 6-1 Ollie Watkins 23 points? That was just never on the cards. And I mean, that's honestly the magic of sports and fantasy sports. Like, let it be. I'm bummed to miss out. But like, let the points chasing commence.
Yeah, it's... I think you're handling this very well. I actually think I kind of collectively everyone seems to be handling it pretty well. And I think this season has been a little bit of it's been a toughie for it's been a little tricky. Maybe not sucker punch, but I just think it's very interesting the way some of these seasons go. And clearly everyone listening is not 3 million overall or whatever. There's people listening who are having incredible seasons, but there's a kind of like collective team, like a kind of social media team, right? That sort of generally people doing this kind of content, they all sort of have at least 8 or 9 of those players, and that social media team is doing unusually poorly, right? That team, of which my team is perilously close, is like around 3 million, and it's maybe it'll last, maybe it won't. But I think what's interesting is that there are some seasons when that team, the like community team, is like 100K right now, right? And it's sort of interesting, and so it's sort of, you kind of take the temperature based on what that team looks like, and that team is definitely struggling. I think the Estupinan thing was especially tough for some people because he wasn't started by everybody, but everyone ultimately seemed like they kind of got him no matter what
somehow,
because mostly because of Sven Botman and then maybe Ben Chilwell as well, right? With Chilwell not being available, a lot of people. Well, we assume. I mean, that match is on Monday, but very likely almost certainly will not have Chilwell tomorrow. So so with him out and Botman out, virtually everyone's going to get those Estupinan -2 into their squad. I thought maybe some got Saliba, Brandon. I feel like Saliba's still kicking around a number of teams. Maybe some folks got him.
Yeah, maybe Gabriel is on people's benches.
Yeah, I should have just held on. I should have held for the. I should have long hauled with old Gabriel.
I'm getting Udogie off the bench, assuming Chilwell doesn't play, which is almost certain. And there was this could lead us into a brief discussion about VAR, but the beauty of that hilarious VAR offside call against Luis Diaz was I got to sweat my Udogie clean sheet for a few more minutes, and that was probably the happiest I was this entire Saturday, at least. Was thinking I got away with murder.
Game week 34, or minute 34, minute 44, whatever. Whatever Gakpo scored. Yeah, that was. So the theme of this week's pod is overrated, underrated, properly rated, Brandon, and we're going to go through some highly owned players, some low ownership players as well. I think we're going to give the Joachim Andersons of the world some due, or is it Joachim? I assume it's Joachim, Brandon, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
We're not pronunciation experts. We do respect all of these players, and that's really where it ends. Yeah,
and we respect pronunciation experts as well. We rate them highly.
Oh, yeah, we hear from them often.
Yeah, so that's going to be the key theme of this week's pod. It's a chance to take stock of some of the players that are kind of on everyone's minds at the moment. So that's the theme of this week's pod. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I had some fun putting this one together. But there was a stato tossed in as I put out the call for who you want to overrate, who you want us to review in the overrated, underrated, properly rated section. And Stato said, how do you rate VAR, Brandon? What is it? Video assisted review? Is that what it is?
I think it's review? A video assistant referee. I think VAR is the name of a referee.
That's like DVD standing for digital versatile disc, right? Which, So, I mean, obviously, it's a clown show every single week. It makes the Premier League look so bad, right? It makes them look just incredibly incompetent. I mean, nobody likes long replay reviews, but in most other sports, if you spend a lot of time on this stuff, you do usually get to the right answer, right? It's the delays that people get mad about. What's crazy about VAR in England is they spend so long on this stuff and then they come to the wrong answer so frequently at a volume that is unlike. And of course, in this case, it was insane because there was
they just got up and walked away to get a cup of coffee. And
a clearly onside goal, and then they do. Now like this season, it's been all about the instant check, right? Instant check. So somehow they checked it and said they thought. And I'm not even going to remember all the names of the various referees. Was it? Well, I'm not even going to go down that road.
Darren England was the VAR official. That I remember. He's the guy who's being tarred and feathered right now.
Yeah, and I don't blame the on pitch people. I mean, this is what VAR was for, right? Because at that angle, he looks offside based on the defender that's next to him, right? But it's the defender 15 feet nearer to the touchline that that puts them on, right? And so that's exactly what VR in theory is for. But because the VAR referee thought that the goal that was called a goal and not an offside goal, he said that the goal stands.
Check complete. Said check complete. Good to go.
And then what's crazy is like seconds later, he clearly must have understood that like they didn't call this. It's like you can't go back into that. Like once you say the words check complete, it's like the door shuts behind you. You can't be like, oh wait, I guess you misunderstood me or what. It was like, oh no, I guess. And then what happens, of course, is that the goal doesn't count. The clean sheet stays intact. I don't get my Salah assist, which was quite annoying. And then Son, the player I dropped Salah for, scores a goal a 1 minute later. And it was from a fantasy perspective, that was like that was a kind of a sucker punch, I have to say. But whatever. It was Liverpool equalized. I mean, I guess you could argue that the VAR decision cost them the match. I don't know. It's like this the moment it was so separate. I mean, if that VR decision had come in the 87th minute or something like that, but I think it was early enough that you can't necessarily directly attribute it to them getting zero points out of one or whatever. But still, I mean, it's a gigantic mistake. I mean, this is not a VAR general pod or in general interest. You would try to keep it in focus in fantasy, although it certainly had major fantasy implications. But I don't know. I mean, how do they keep saying that like VAR is fine, but the people are bad. But I don't know that there's like a whole group of people that are like waiting to take. It's like who's going to come in that's better? Like so it's like as the people are the people. So I don't understand. It's like they're kind of.
The reason we have VAR is reason we have VAR is because people thought the officiating wasn't up to scratch and they need help. Who better than to run the help than the guys that you were disrespecting to begin with? So if the solution to improving VAR is getting better officials, then I take you to the first part of this answer, which is, well, you only have VAR because you didn't have better officials. If you have better officials, you don't need VAR. And the reason you'd make a case against VAR is not because I'm afraid of computers or I'm afraid of guys in little locked rooms looking at screens. I don't care. Yeah. But it is so clear that VAR has sucked the enjoyment out of the live match experience. It also is creating all sorts of pronounced conspiratorial thinking that I think everyone wants to avoid. Now, instead of just saying the match officials are having poor performances, people are suggesting there are, deeper conspiracies afoot, that might favor one club over another. And that's totally against whatever the Premier League or PGMO would want. It's horrible.
It's like that general rule, like don't ascribe malicious intent when incompetence can be more readily ascribed, right? And it's clearly a matter of incompetence. What I don't understand is, and also, I mean, that match was just a VAR. I mean, because like you had the red card that was like, just really honestly, it's like only in VARs that are red, right? It's like he gets the ball, his foot touches the ball first, goes over the ball, and accidentally gets Basuma in the leg. I mean, it's just that 3 years ago, for whenever, it's like that's not a red, and I don't even that one. It's at least there's like a kind of like by the letter of the law, but there's just so much of that now, right? Because it's the same thing with like
too many laws.
There's too many laws, right? And it's like it's the same thing with now if you play a ball into the box, you're not looking for a player necessarily, right? You're looking for a hand, like you're looking for an elbow that you can because by the letter of the law that is a handball, and it makes it very tedious, and it just feels like I think they basically like they fixed the big problem, which was the offside stuff, right? Like that to me is solved effectively. Like they made the lines thicker, and that pretty much means that like any really outrageous, egregious offside stuff, it's all fine, right? So like in general, it's like the VAR stuff now is the more kind of incompetent. Well, it's just weird to me because like in Major League Baseball, they basically implemented a VAR system this year, or a couple, I guess maybe it was 2 years ago, and now it's like if there's a stolen base or whatever, right? They'll or something really close, right? Play at first base and it's super tight, and they'll take a look at it, but they have a dedicated team. And that's all they do for every match day is like they all they do is they look at all of these games and then they have like a team of people who just look at them and make decisions. They don't have like the guy whose day off it is or whatever like come in who clearly resents the entire idea of this, right? The very concept of VAR is like, hey, we want to replace you with robots. Here, robot
can you,
boy,
like, be complicit in this plan?
Yeah. Why do you tell one of your teammates that he got it all wrong? Like, it's like, of course, like it's so bad. It's so poorly managed. And it's just crazy that it's still this bad. And it just, I don't know. We should really stop right now, right? We got a UK trip coming up.
Yeah, we're going to go see some of our friends at the Premier League in a couple of months. So, hey.
We love everyone we've met and talked to is awesome. But I think we can all agree that VAR has some room for improvement. I think that's fine. I'm really walking this. We need to cut all of this. I think, Brandon, this is a dangerous stuff here. But no, it's whatever. Hopefully it gets better. That's all we'll say about that. Brandon, score check time. I am on a little green arrow. I'm on 51 points. It's unless things go chaotic tomorrow, I feel pretty confident keeping that green arrow because I still have Morris for the second match of the double game week. And who would really hurt me tomorrow? I guess Raheem Sterling, if he like completely went off. Maybe a Burnley clean sheet. I don't know. I mean, not too many things, right? Yep. Jackson can't hurt us anymore. He's suspended.
Thank God. Yeah, I agree. I don't have anybody to play tomorrow either. I'm sat on 37 points if you assume Udoggy comes in for Botman. So I'm well below the average at this point, dropped down to 2.1 million overall. The real horror show is my defense. So Kabore still has one more match to play, but cumulatively I have 1 point from my three defenders and goalkeeper. So that's not great. Combine that with Rashford and Bruno in the midfield. It's just like more poor performances there. But goals, as we discussed from Morris, Alvarez, and Saka are good, and I'll hope to get something from Kabore and Morris against Burnley on Tuesday. But all this kind of leads me to wild card, which I will be playing ahead of game week 8. It seems I don't think I've ever played a wild card just prior to an international break, but I think it is right, because especially with the early wild card where we're not trying to capitalize on some double game week bonanza or something like that. It's good, and it's just I think it really is Manchester United more than anything. I can't take on any more evidence that this team is in free fall at this point, and to be tripled up on them with Onana and goal, it's inexcusable at this point. And I've got a few drafts already, but there's a long way to go until the game week 8 deadline. But I'm looking for ways to get Salah, Son, and Haaland in all together. And then the question would be, does Trippier come in or not? I hope we know more about Botman before the game week 8 deadline, if he plays or not, because that would be, I think I can convince myself, for better or worse, that I can get away without Trippier. But on the other hand, I'm not sure how much my team gets improved by not having Trippier and saving that, like 1.5 million over somebody like Schär. So I'm kind of leaning toward the Trippier draft now.
Yeah, I think that you and I have just like we're officially like admitting defeat on the Trippier thing. I think we kind of did that last week, but if that white flag wasn't like readily present for everyone watching, it now is. I mean, looking at your squad here, I think it's going to be hard for you to do, to be honest, to fit everybody in, right? The Trippier, Son, Salah. I mean, it's like the thing I think you'd have to do, and maybe you can really dig into it on the Patreon pod this week. And I'm going to propose something here, Brandon, and I think we should do the Patreon pod as a YouTube, and then you could share some screens and stuff like that. So yeah. I'm gonna feel free to delete this in post, Brandon, if you violently disagree with me.
No, I think that could be fun.
Yeah, share some screenshots and stuff. I think it'd be a good chance to do that, because it's hard. I always think it's hard when people talk about wild cards to like. I want to see it, as people are talking about it. But I think you've got to kill your darlings situation with your wild card, where I think to get that Son Salah, I think you probably are going to have to drop Madison and maybe a Stupinan. I think those are like the two that would really free up some space for you, because I think you're going to be tempted to get an Ollie Watkins again too, and you're going to kind of want to find a path there at some point as well.
It certainly has crossed my mind, and it's very logical that the guy is going to take a huge amount of confidence from that performance, as is the entire squad at Aston Villa. And they've already been providing incredible attacking underlying stats. So now it's just kind of coming to bear. I really kind of don't understand what happened to Brighton this week. We need some actual analysis on that.
They had a moment, because I remember last week's pod we were talking about how they won or lost every game 1-3 or 1-4. Right? It was like 3-1. Every match was either a 3-1, 4-1. 3-1 win or a 4-1 win or a 1-3 loss. And then they were down 1-4. And I was like, great, the narrative is going to stay intact. And then Villa tacked on 2 more. What a low key, awesome season Aston Villa are having right now. It's fun. There's a great variety. We've talked about this before, and this is a way for us to, we can transition into the overrated and underrated thing in a second here. But if you're worried about making fantasy fun again, Brandon, I will say this weekend, outside of today, which was like a 1-day international break, it was like there was one match on and it was terrible. It was like for a match that had 2 goals and a red card, it was like a borderline the whole match I was watching this, I was like, I'm not enjoying myself, is what I kept thinking. I mean, I had him Boba, but even besides that, I don't know why that match had no buzz. I don't know where the buzz was.
It's true. Good pun on bees there for all the Brentford listeners.
Yeah, exactly. Unintentional, but fitting. But I felt like Saturday, there was, like, the matches were interesting, even if they were not always competitive. I thought they were. I mean, obviously, anytime when Villa beats a very good Brighton team 6-1, that is of note, right? That's interesting. And Luton Town getting a win, which I thought was kind of cool, and I was happy for them too. And Man United losing again at home to Palace, and Palace, another team that's played some pretty impressive matches so far. I thought Wolves beating Man City is obviously a huge win for them as well. It's very interesting, isn't it, that Man City have lost both of the matches since Rodri got suspended. I mean, he's obviously an incredible player, but it's kind of crazy that they're 0-2 since he's
I think something that stood out definitely throughout their treble run last season is how incredible Rodri is in that system. And so I guess like it can't surprise some people that Rodri missing is maybe it's like when Mings went off for Aston Villa. I'm going to compare Rodri to Mings. It's like when Mings left the pitch in game week 1 against Newcastle, and Villa just totally collapsed because they were missing their captain / talisman, and it just does something weird to your mind. Now, granted, City are more accomplished and should have a game plan, and they have days and days to prepare for these matches, but anyway, and the last match to point out, especially fantasy-wise, is the hat trick of penalty takers for Arsenal in that Bournemouth match. Saka, Odegaard, and Havertz. I mean, I guess it's good for team camaraderie, but for fantasy, it's absolutely diabolical.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know what to do, Brandon. It's. I think you've got some really interesting choices to make over the next handful of days. And you know what? How about this for a transition?
Do it.
And I look forward to hearing more about these choices on our Thursday evening bonus pod for our Patreon supporters. Thursday night, live on YouTube. We're going to do a Patreon pod exclusively. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just make that link exclusive for Patreon supporters. We'll drop it into the Discord. We'll also we'll do it as a post on our
exactly.
Patreon page.
Send out an email from Patreon. So keep an eye out for that. You'll find it.
But if you want to support the podcast, it's the first of the month, so it's a great time to get in. The Discord, especially, is just a really it is a cheerful lot. And if you're looking to make fantasy fun again, it's a great place to go. Whether having a good season or a poor one. So far, still only 7 weeks in. But you get the extra podcast each week. You can chat with us on Discord. There's discounts on merch and all kinds of other stuff. So patreon.com/alwayscheating is where you can go. Brandon, let's take a break. We'll get back and we'll talk about overrated, underrated, and properly rated players.
There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform that you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because Indeed does the hard work for you. They show you the candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post so you can hire faster. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports, and support the show by saying that you heard it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
This Halloween,
mystery lurks around every corner.
Bundle up with Disney Plus and Hulu.
What are you scared of? The dark.
It's spine-tingling fun on Disney Plus with Haunted Mansion and Goosebumps.
I'm gonna need you to spread the word.
Then feel the bone-chilling terror on Hulu with The Boogeyman and American Horror Story Delicate.
Something's happening to me.
The Disney Bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus. All of these and more streaming this month. Plans starting at $9.99 a month. 18 plus only. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for eligible subscribers only. Terms apply.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that can earn 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a savings account. A high-yield, low-effort way to grow your money with no fees. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone to start earning and growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners, subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
All right, Brian, we're back. Overrated, underrated, properly rated. We're going to do this by position just to make it a little easier to listen to. I did put out the call on Twitter and Discord for ease of listening, Brandon. We will not be reading off questions in this section, though. So thank you to everyone who contributed ideas for this week's pod. You know who you are, and you'll be thanked privately with cash. Brandon, send them some money, please.
Big time. Okay.
Pod. So, just Brandon's going to work that stuff out, pay out of pocket. All right, we're going to start things off, Brandon. I'm starting this thing off spicy. Okay. Erling Haaland, 14.1 million, 8 goals, 1 assist, 91.9% owned. Is Erling Haaland, and we can sort of, overrated and underrated obviously takes on different meaning in different cases, context. Right? In different contexts. Obviously, Erling Haaland is arguably the world's greatest forward, certainly up there with Kane and maybe, I don't know, Lewandowski's maybe a little too old now. Osimhen, can we throw him in there maybe too? But one of the absolute best forwards in the world, certainly. Mm-hmm. But he has been the perma captain for virtually all of us. He has not completely failed to deliver, but he's had blanked in game week 7. I think he had 6 points, no bonus in 6 points, no bonus in 5. So not terrible by any means, but There have been better options, and not just better options among like players that nobody owns, like better options that were clearly better options going into the match, right? Like you could have seen a path for X or Y player being not necessarily on Man City, right? But like an Odegaard in some cases, or we're going to see it in game week 8, right? We can talk about this later. Like Son and Maddison are both excellent picks in the Luton match for an alternative captaincy with Man City and Arsenal playing a game week 8. So do you think at this stage, 7 weeks in, that Erling Haaland, even if we're just thinking about the captaincy itself, right? Is Erling Haaland a little bit overrated in fantasy at this point?
I guess
14.1 million too. Pricey, right?
Yeah, I'm willing to go along with that argument. I think I put myself in the properly rated camp ultimately, because I do think to score goals, maybe we're just like level setting Haaland after his like brutal efficiency of last season. But I still think he is the same player. He's just missed a few key chances. Like the couple of matches already in the Premier League season stand out that I think if he puts a couple of those chances away, we're not having this level of deep questioning about Haaland. So that's the argument for him being properly rated. For him to be overrated, I think, yes, you do. It is really just in the context of the captaincy discussion. And with Son and Salah emerging, I mean, who else is in that captaincy conversation right now?
Saka?
But I think Saka for sure. Yeah, right. And they've properly emerged as captaincy options, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Can you believe Saka handed off 2 pens? 2 pens. Okay, one I could kind of understand. But we handed off the second pen to Kai Havertz. That was a kind of, honestly, in its own weird, unique way, that was an all-time fantasy moment where I was just like, the first pen, I was like, okay, maybe he'll do this. Maybe he'll give it to, even though he was standing with the ball, right? So that made it especially painful. It wasn't like someone was, I guess he was protecting the spot or whatever, but it looked to all rights like he was going to take it. Then he panned up, okay, I guess that's happened before. Annoying, but possible. But then the second one, you're like, surely, doesn't he have a goal bonus like in his salary structure or something like that?
Hey,
I thought this guy,
he's not hyper capitalist. He's got all the money he needs.
That's true. That's true.
You
think he's the first Marxist? Totally. I want it. Yeah, would it be amazing if they open up his locker and he's got like a bunch of texts about the communal experience and sort of sharing everything. And
I'd love that. I'd love that for him.
Yeah.
I was watching the Arsenal match by way of the goal rush. Like they just take you to the game where they've just scored a goal, and I was not impressed. There were a number of penalties on Saturday, and Goal Rush gave spoilers, like there's a penalty and they have scored it. And I'm like, no, just let me watch it and see if they scored or not.
Why don't you just cut in too? Why are they? Again, I don't want to we're going to get into much trouble in this pod, but I love the cut in when it happens. Like I feel like sometimes it's like someone's down with an injury for 4 minutes. You're like, this is a great chance to cut
plenty
away.
of time.
Yeah.
So they whipped us over to the Arsenal, and I saw Odegaard on the spot, and I was just like, lordy. I need my fantasy points, not this.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Odegaard more. He's coming up here, Brandon. But I think you got kind of screwed because I know that the Man United game was the featured match on that, and that was a game you had to watch because of your 3 players. But it was pretty clearly the worst game of the 3, unless you're a Crystal Palace supporter. By the way, we now officially have tickets. I forgot to mention this at the top of the pod. We've got tickets to Selhurst Park, so. Our UK trip coming up, that's game week 12, the weekend of November 11th. We are going to be at the West Ham Olympiacos, and that'd be kind of fun too, see Olympiacos.
Yeah, that's the Thursday night Europa League match.
Great club. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Friday is when we're planning our listener meetups somewhere in London. Details to come. And then a couple more matches on the weekend, which you just got us tickets for. Which matches are those?
Yeah, that's Palace hosting Everton. Probably the premier match that weekend, Brandon. I assume that's the one that all the TV the networks. No, we've got that, and then the next day, I'm actually super excited about that. I think it's going to be really fun.
We heard great things about Selhurst Park.
Yeah, I really want to go there and check it out. And then the next day we'll be at Stamford Bridge for Chelsea hosting Man City, which is the 4:30 p.m. Final game of the game week on Sunday. So that'll be a lot of fun. And you and I are doing the hospitality experience there. So we'll tell you how that goes, Brandon. We're going to be hobnobbing. I don't know if we have to wear jackets or what, but we're going to be with the elite. I need a pocket square. Maybe we'll get poppies because it is Remembrance Weekend. So we'll have to see if we have to get poppied up for that.
Absolutely.
Anyway. All right, back to our regular scheduled content. Erling Haaland, I agree. He's probably turning into a slightly overrated perma captain, right? As looking at it purely through the lens of whether we should be not even thinking about whether to captain him or not. I think at the moment, I have to admit, I have him captained for game week 8. So I'm still falling into that trap. We'll see. We'll see if I get Son. If I get Son for game week 8, then that might, change things. Maddison seems less, I don't know. I feel for some part of me is like, I just can't quite get there with Maddison as a captain. But.
Yeah, I have that same hesitation with Maddison. I think it's because he is so involved all over the pitch, covers a lot of grass, and Son, you just kind of know what the remit is for him. It's goals.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's like Maddison, a couple more things have to go right for him to have a really big return. So Julian Alvarez is the other Man City player that we've got in this section here, and he's I think an interesting case. He's only 7 million, 3 goals, 5 assists, up to 32% owned, so it's climbed a lot. I feel like he is, I think, still slightly underrated, and I guess the reason I will say that is because I still sense a kind of disappointment in him, or like a reluctance to hold him or see him as a long-term option. I feel like there's still, it's like people are kind of itching to drop him. And I don't quite understand it, because to me, he's still just probably set and forget until KDB comes back, which isn't expected to be until the new year. He's just too valuable to this team right now. He has too many things. And I mean, he really is kind of playing like a KDB. I mean, that free kick goal was a beauty, right? An absolutely, unstoppable goal from the keeper, right? Like just like postage stamp upper left. And so I think, I'm just super impressed with him. And I think Pep is as well. And will he occasionally get rotated out or around? Yes. But at 7 million, it just seems like you've got to just kind of stick with him. So, what do you think about it?
He hasn't been rotated yet. Not even in like the midweek cup match. Pep clearly loves him, clearly views him as an essential piece of his starting 11, and he's playing really well. So as far as fantasy value goes, I think he is still underrated because I sense that too amongst fantasy managers that we engage with. There's just this weird lack of enthusiasm about him, where he is probably the biggest gift that we've been given from FPL this season.
Yeah, for Man City, certainly, right? Like probably the biggest gift from Man City, and I don't know, I guess since Haaland last year, right? Because there was a moment early on when, Haaland was not, I will tell you this, Brendan, Haaland was not 91.9% owned this early in the season last year. He got there, but I think even at the start of the season, I don't think his ownership was higher than 30% going into game week 1, at least. There's just no way, right? It was kind of controversial whether you were going to have him or not to start the season.
I think last game week when Foden scored the early goal for City, you thought, oh, well, this might rationalize the lack of enthusiasm for Alvarez, where people are still thinking there are other options in this City team that I want to be open to. But I think that free kick goal this weekend against Wolves underscored how, Alvarez is the clear second pick to have. The real problem is when you try to get cute with players like Foden. And I admit, I gave the Brandon guarantee of the week that Doku would return against Wolves. I missed.
Yeah.
I rarely miss, but I missed that one.
No, you did. It was a bona fide Cajun style guarantee, and it was, didn't come to pass, but I think it will next time.
Yeah,
Brandon.
you for a moment thought that Gambit from the X-Men had actually come in to be the third cheater, and that was just me doing my famous Gambit
you were just
accent.
You were just recording the pod in a leather duster and holding a pack of playing cards in your hand. So it did. You can understand why someone would think I was talking to
Totally.
Gambit. Next player, Brandon. So we were Alvarez. Haaland, we're saying properly rated. Alvarez, we're saying slightly underrated still, at least in terms of, again, we're sort of making up our terms here as we go. It's a little different in each case, Brandon. The underrated and overrated don't mean the same thing in terms of every player. It's fluid, exactly. Ollie Watkins is next. 8 million, 4 goals, 6 assists, 21.7% owned. You were telling me in the break, I did not realize just how extreme the XG results were between the two squads, and it does point, I think, to you can't just look at goals and assists, and I don't think we're doing that with our commentary here, but I think that the fact that Brighton had a higher XG than Villa yesterday and lost the match 6-1 does mean you should take all kind of numbers this early in the season with a grain of salt. But I think Ollie is what? I think he's in his 4th season now in the Premier League, maybe 5th. I think it's his 4th though, and he's been incredibly consistent.
It's his 4th, yeah.
It's his 4th, yeah. And I think there was a little bit of concern about his price going into the season, a feeling maybe he wasn't quite worth 8 million. Well, lo and behold, Brendan, we're 7 weeks into the season, and he's the top overall points getter in fantasy. So for the top overall points getter in fantasy to be, and granted, it's skewed a little bit by one big game, but he has been. I mean, he's had returns in 6 out of 7 matches. It's not
one blank,
like a total. Yeah, one blank on the season. So I think we have to consider Ollie Watkins underrated, if not hugely underrated. Let's be totally honest here.
Yeah, and I do feel like I had this coming, missing out on his return, because I hate doing the toot your own horn, but I do feel like I have been in the camp since he came to Villa from Brentford of like, this guy found his level in the Premier League. And I don't think it took him as long as many people would report. And I think that we are getting a performance from Ollie Watkins that we should suspect. And I think the trick was that he wasn't scoring many goals the first month of the season, and that caused us in this moment in time to underrate him. And he's punished us all for it. He's a really gifted striker.
He really has. I mean, you must be feeling, if you have Watkins right now, you must be feeling so good. I mean, I think our friend the General held on to Watkins, and many other, obviously 21% owned. I mean, a lot of people listening should have him in their squads.
He passes he passes the bicep test too. You look at this guy's a stud. He's just, he's kind of unassuming in his look. Lots of people say he looks just like an auto-generated FIFA character, but he's got like the veins coming out of his biceps. The guy is just like a total athlete, and he's. I hope he keeps this going. Can we afford to get him back? This is my concern on the wild card. Is do you forego the 3-4-3? I really love playing with 3 strikers, and Watkins. If you're playing with 3 up front, I just like Watkins feels like still a fun player to have.
I feel like I'd rather have, if you were okay. Let me reframe it for you. Would you rather have Madison or Watkins over the next 10 weeks or whatever?
I think I go Madison there because Madison is also fun.
He is he's also fun. I think I would go Watkins in that case. I actually think I don't know, maybe like you, my brain always wants to default to like a 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3.
Right.
I mean, Villa over the next 5: Wolves, West Ham, Luton Town, Forest, Fulham, and let's see, Spurs in the next 5 is Luton Town, Fulham, it's very similar. Luton Town, Fulham, Palace, Chelsea, Wolves. So both good in both cases. I think I don't know. I just think with Watkins' form, he might
So what are you thinking about Watkins in terms of your team? Because you have no clear path
an easy
to getting
way
him.
I don't have a my path is not impossible. It just requires me to forego Son. I think that's really the only way to do it. At the moment, I've got Morris, who can turn into somebody, some other forward, if I don't keep him. And he's 5.5. I've got 1.3 in the bank. So basically, I need to find another million. But I feel like I've got to make some tough decisions here. I mean, Mbomo, we'll talk about him shortly. It feels like he's got to go. I can't. I think that Odegaard is really
Spicy.
in absolutely incredible form at the moment. And the thing that's fun about Odegaard too is he is the kind of player that can get you like a really big match, right? Like if you're looking for like, oh, I want to transfer and I want to bring in somebody who could possibly get me like, I don't know, like a Watkins level return, right? Like 15 to 20 plus points. Odegaard is one of those players, right? Because Saka is going to give him a pen or two over the next few weeks. And he is, creating chances for people all over the pitch. He's just a terrific player. And so I think that, so Odegaard's up there, Watkins is up there. There's just a lot of players that I'm kind of excited about, and I think for me it's this again, it's the Salah problem again, which is that it's nice to have Salah in my squad because he's so consistent, but it's just crazy how much having a 12.5 million player just really forces you to make really tough choices.
I don't know.
He's the one that has to go.
Backpedaling on our whole Salah's the season's Kane argument from a couple of weeks ago, but.
I think I guess I don't want to go super far down the Salah road here. In fact, we can just talk about him now, and then we can talk about our last forward here. But so Salah is, he's 12.6 million, 31% owned, so high, but not insanely high by his kind of previous standards. But I actually think he's got a really incredible 5-week run coming up here. Brighton away, and Brighton just do not keep clean sheets, right? This is just like it's remarkable how Estupiñán has not kept a single clean sheet so far this season. It's amazing he's been such a good fantasy asset without keeping a single clean sheet. So they have Brighton away, then Everton and Forest at home, two great back-to-back matches. Luton away in game week 11, and then Brentford at home. And Flecken may be the worst keeper in the Premier League. So I think there's a real, genuinely, he might be the worst keeper in the Premier League. And so I think it's incredible. I mean, he's so bad. And so I think it's just an incredible 5-match run. And then, so I think if you have a chance to bring in Salah now, I think it's still worth some of the other sacrifices that you've got to make in your squad. I just think one of those big guns on a wild card is going to have to go between. Mm-hmm. Well, it's really, I guess it's just really Son and Saka. It's just really hard to have, Son and Salah. It's just really hard to have those two. Mm-hmm. I do feel like Trippier feels like probably a must-have at this point. His ownership's getting pretty high as well.
Yeah.
So
I think Salah is suddenly finding himself in the overrated column. And it feels unfair to say that because watching him and watching Liverpool have been excellent this season. Yep. Everybody knows that. And Salah has been contributing in interesting new ways to Liverpool's victories, turning provider in a lot of situations. He's looked on it. And I don't want to dismiss that. But just in terms of he's become overrated by virtue of so many other players in the fantasy game doing well around him, and that's his biggest weakness.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think part of what makes it frustrating with him is a lot of these other players. It's kind of fun to mix and match, right? Sterling's not working out for me. Let me try this player. Oh, Mbomo's not working out for me. Let me try this player. But with Salah, it's like either you stick with him through thick and thin, or there's no like for like swap that you can make with
him. Marriage.
Right? It's a marriage. Exactly. Through the thick and thin, you just have to put up with it, Brandon. And
yes, exactly.
In a good way, it's great. It's a wonder. It's very, very fulfilling.
Our wives don't listen to this.
In the end, yeah, exactly. By the end, Brandon, you're happy. You did it. So one last forward though, and this is like we don't have to spend very long on him, but I just did want to quickly shout out Dominic Solanke, 6.4 million, 3 goals, 1 assist. And the reason I'm shouting him out is because he's 2.2% owned, and that just seems very low for a player who I think is a really dangerous fantasy asset and somebody who is a price point that most people can get to fairly easily. It's like if you get an injured forward, or you can't get to Watkins, or you're like, I just really don't want to have Morris any longer than I possibly have to. I think that he's at 6.4, somebody that you want. And but for the record, I don't know why you'd feel the urgent need to drop Morris, right? He's got 3 goals in the season now. He's 5.5. Like
he's putting up Solanke numbers.
Yeah. I mean, 3 goals and 1 assist on the season at 5.5 is really not, it's not, it's just
2
not
of them
that
are
bad.
pens. Yeah. You have to,
but I mean, that's part of that's priced in, right? I mean, that's part of what you're getting with a player like that. That's why that's why he's like the extra 0.5 million, right? Is because of the pens.
I want to know more about this 2.2% of fantasy managers who have Solanke right now. Like, who are you?
Are they having a good time?
Yeah, reach out. I want to take a peek under the hood.
I'm curious too. Yeah, if you're a Solanke owner, let's do an hour with them, Brandon. Let's do like a full 60-minute style.
That's
just about Dominic. Yeah. That'd be like a great challenge for the pod. Could you and I want to do that. I want to do that like an
pick a random player out of a hat and do 60 minutes on him.
A full 60-minute pod where we just talk about that player. That would be incredible.
Straight into the main feed.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want to do that. We should find I want some kind of random generator. We plug every player's name and it has to spit one out. So we really can't cheat at all, right? Like Haaland, we could obviously do, but what happens if we get Issa Kabore? Could we do 60 minutes on Kabore? I don't know.
It feels hard. It feels difficult.
I couldn't do it. Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's not like improv. Like we could do some video, research or whatever. Anyway, all right, let's move on to the midfielders. This is kind of the main section here. We're warmed up though, Brennan, so I think we're going to go through this fast. West Ham mids, thought we'd kick them off a little bit. We don't talk about West Ham as much as we should, Brandon. And with the looming Olympiacos Europa League match, I assume they're going to start resting players early, ahead of that one.
It's a big one.
We've got James Ward-Prowse and Jared Bowen. I sort of think you got to think about them together because JWP is 6.3 million, 2 goals and 3 assists. Didn't play in the first game week as well, so the number could be even higher. He's 13.5% owned. Jared Bowen 7.2 million, so not about $1 million more expensive. 5 goals and 1 assist though.
Wow, really
terrific start. Effectively the same ownership as Bowen, as Ward-Prowse is at 15%, so 1.5% more. So what do you think about these 2 players? I mean, they sort of, are they, I guess my instincts are that Ward-Prowse is Ward-Prowse is moving towards being properly rated, right? People are talking about him more and more, and he's gotten a lot of praise for his contributions, rightly so. Whereas Bowen, I think because last year was kind of a bust, where he started the season at like 8.5 million and really disappointed, came on late, but kind of too late to be on anybody's radar. And the fact that he's knocked in 5 goals and 1 assist at a very reasonable price, so 7.2 million, he's probably underrated at this point, I'd say. Yes. And, looking ahead to West Ham's fixtures, not a great game week 8, but from there, I guess 8 and 9. The next couple aren't awesome. They play Newcastle home, Villa away, but then Everton, Brentford, Forest in the 3 after that. So it's not a terrible. Bowen may. And sorry, I'll let you talk after this. But Bowen, I'm into it. Bowen may actually be. Maybe they both are a little bit kind of fixture proof, where you could sort of see them getting attacking returns in any kind of match.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with your categorization there, where Bowen is underrated and Ward-Prowse is properly rated. I mean, I think he's properly rated in that he just is. Like, we know what he's doing on set pieces, and the way I was thinking about it going into game week 7, because West Ham was like on a lot of people's radar, and we're getting a lot of questions from our supporters about how to fit them into our team. And I was thinking, well, Ward-Prowse is a good fit for your team if you have a smaller budget to work with, and he's a good long-term hold. Whereas Jared Bowen has the higher point ceiling, is more explosive, but the $8 million price tag could really shake up the rest of your fantasy squad, and that's not for everybody. I think there's a little bit of risk there, I guess. I mean, but that's kind of operating under the assumption that West Ham are a risky team to buy into, and I think that they have actually had a very good start to the Premier League season and have basically put last season behind them. They figured out how to make it work in the league while also being a European team. So really I love West Ham. I think they're I think they're a good team to buy into. Ward-Prowse just still kind of seems like a good fantasy friendly pick. I don't know. This is where you and I differ, where I'm always the one going for the tidy little pen that you can have in your pocket whenever you need it, and you want the big star.
I see the case for Ward-Prowse. I really do. I actually think, maybe like many other people, I look at my team for game week 8. I mean, I see a lot of spots I don't love. I mean, Mbomo playing away to Man United is probably a good hold. It just feels like a match where he could get an attacking return, right? Like there's definitely counter-attacking opportunities, and Man United just are really struggling to defend right now. So yeah, I've been in like Morris at home to Spurs. I don't know. How do you feel about that one? Like, are you
not great? I think Spurs are playing incredible defense right now. The keeper is awesome. Van de Ven is really bedded in, making up for Romero's insanity. And both fullbacks. Porro had a really strong game against Liverpool, and Udogie is one of the best defensive signings of the season. So there you go.
It's like I'd rather have Morris come off the bench for a player who didn't play. It's like it doesn't feel like I'm putting my best foot forward if I start with him. And so I could maybe consider a -4 if it all kind of clicked. There was a part of me that wanted to move Saka to Son for this Luton match, and now I'm just a little too scared to do that. I just think if Arsenal were playing away to Man City, I might have considered it, but I also think, and just if I'm not, I'm sure I'm 100% right about this, but Man City will still not have Rodri, right? For that, for this.
Yeah, I think he has one more match, right? Is it just one more match for violent conduct?
Yeah, one more, because they did have the Carabao Cup. So it was Carabao Cup, the weekend, the Wolves match, and now the Arsenal match. So it's so I think that's another reason maybe to hold on to Saka if you were considering it, is that they are going to be playing a home match in a pretty good run of attacking form without Rodri. So
what's the deal with Saka though? I mean, there's all these complaints about like, oh, he's hurt, he's got these injuries, and it's not like. I was talking with our friend Mike, who's a big Arsenal fan, and he was saying Arteta, certainly in the media, is trying to figure out how to get referees to have more sympathy for Saka. But this I really don't understand. Like, it's Saka's entire game is there are some similarities to Grealish, right? Like, he just sucks defenders in to close quarters and beats them on the dribble. This is just the way it's going to happen. Yeah. Saka has to figure out how to get beyond this physically, is my feeling. But great player that he is.
I mean, he did play, and played well without practicing or anything. So I liked his little headed goal. I thought that was like a nice, like that was like that's what like a really good player does, right? He was just in the right spot. Like he was just right in front of the goal, right? And anytime you're playing with Gabriel, anytime you're playing with Gabriel Jesus, you got to expect some misses, right? And so you just gotta just park yourself in front of that goal. And
feast on the scraps. No, I mean he's playing incredible football. It's just very annoying that there is this halo of physical disability surrounding him at all times.
I know. I don't know how much that's coming from him, to be fair. I
think Arteta a little bit
working the refs, and so I think that's okay. Well, anyway, let's get back to I don't know. We went from James Ward-Prowse to talking about Saka injuries. So we talked about Mbomo. I watched Brian Mbomo was the next player on my list here, Brian. We talked about Mbomo. I was really not. I don't know. I suppose Forest have improved, and that's not like a gimme match or a match where you'd expect massive attacking returns. But I would have liked to have seen a little more from Mbeumo in that match, and it's at least he wasn't playing as a right back. That was good. He was properly advanced for this one. I think he will be. I think he will be again for Man United. I think given the way that Brentford have played recently, I think they need to kind of go for it in the Man United match.
Yeah, they've not been playing well, and that's the problem. What we saw from Brentford at the start of the season was like, oh, they are playing really well. They're trying to show the world they don't need Ivan Toney to get 3 points, but that's faded. It's totally faded over the last few weeks, and that's worrying. It feels like it's a little bit to do with Mbeumo's form, more so Brentford's like team form is not there. They do this always like in the middle of the season.
They do, right? It's like always the path to ninth place for them. Like it's hot forms and cold. And I think if they were, I don't know, that he's not. If there was a great, like, what is the single best fixture for game week 8? Like I guess you have Spurs Luton, right? But Son is a kind of slightly hard player to get to at 9.3 million or whatever he is. I think beyond that, what's the second best? I don't know. Maybe it's
Fulham's got it, hosting Sheffield United.
I suppose it would
it's Burn Leno time,
right? So yeah, Fulham. Leno. I mean, he's on the list, Brandon. But I think we can just close the book on him right now.
Yeah,
he is underrated or properly rated. Whatever. He's certainly not overrated.
It depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody who's paying attention, they're definitely properly rating him. If you're not paying attention, you might underrate him.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So we'll call him properly.
I think
let's just say properly rated.
Yes,
I think if
agreed.
you're listening to this podcast, if you're 40 minutes
you're
in,
paying
you're probably in the properly rated camp. Exactly. So yeah, Mbeumo, I think he might just get a 1 week stay of execution just because I don't have that like super obvious transfer that makes sense for game week 8. But I will say I didn't even talk about it, but I made a real kind of boring transfer this week. I moved. I moved Chilwell to Dan Burn. Like a move that just screams, this is not exciting. There's nothing dramatic about it. But I turned an injured player into 6 points from Dan Burn, right? And I got a double clean sheet from Newcastle. And it's like these like boring, like eat your vegetables moves that sometimes are the absolute best way to get a green arrow.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a really smart move. Definitely. God, chasing price rises was the absolute worst thing I could have done this past week, because that's how I ended up with Morris by Monday, because every week his price was going to rise. It still hasn't risen, I don't think.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah,
it is weird. Well, it has finally rose.
Would you have not made that move?
I mean, I don't think so. I think I was always going to make it. But there is, I could think this is kind of in the spirit of the bus team. Like there's always a belief that there will be events that happen to you throughout the week that might change the course of your fantasy life. And who knows if I hadn't already made that move that, somebody I would have picked up on some numerology clues, perhaps that I shut myself off to, because I had already made my move.
I hate the way you shut yourself off to that kind of stuff, Brandon.
I know. You do. You constantly say you don't like being around me in those weeks.
All right. So we talked about Odegaard. We'll call Odegaard probably a little. I think we have to call him overrated because Odegaard has not had a single price rise yet this season. Odegaard has had an incredible season. So only 3 goals and 2 assists. I actually would have thought that was higher. I would have thought after through 7 that he had a. So maybe it's just that the big game weeks are so big with him that it makes it seem like he's this incredibly dominant player.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about Maddison versus Son, and you prefer Son because of the goals, and Odegaard is like the greatest amalgamation of Maddison and Son because he has become a decent goal scorer And I think two of these 3 goals are pens, like Carlton Morris, but he's had a couple of goals, I think, chalked off for offside or fouls or things like that. And that kind of inflates maybe our idea of, or it at least demonstrates how his sights are set properly. I love him. On a wild card, I would strongly consider getting Odegaard over Saka. I mean, there's a cheeky little 0.2 price savings there at the moment.
Yeah.
And
it'd be tempting to try to get both, even though it's super hard to do.
Yeah, I wonder. See, like Spurs seem like they're likely to score more goals. The narrative around Arsenal right now is that they're struggling to score like they did early last season. So are there enough goals around for you to want to double up on Arsenal? Because that closes you off to, either double Spurs or getting a West Ham guy.
I don't know. I mean, you could see the kind of Salah Mane situation developing with these two right now, and I think it'd be tempting to try to get both. Again, it probably requires you to not have Salah. That's probably the only way to really make it happen.
So I'm looking at my drafts and just replace Salah with Odegaard, and then you've got a midfield 4 of Saka, Odegaard, Madison, Son. It's all North London, baby.
Yeah, and then you probably could have 3 forwards up front as well, right?
We ride with Ollie Watkins again.
Yeah, you could have Watkins, Alvarez, and Haaland, and then maybe you can still fit in. You can still fit in Trippier too. And
do you think I'll not own Ollie Watkins for just 1 week this season? And it is the week
that would be just trying to think about it that way. Because if you do, it's going to be hard to do.
Kind of makes me laugh a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny. That's true. It is funny. Okay, so we talked about him. Son is properly rated. What can you say about Son? He's properly rated.
We love him.
Yeah, we love him. He had a rough start. It looks like that whole squad is playing well. He's settled in. Phil Foden, overrated. I think it's our first overrated of the pod, Brandon. He's 14% owned. I cannot believe he only has 1 goal and 3 assists in the season. It's just like, it feels like he's involved in everything. Like, it's crazy. He really is involved in everything. It's like, it's not like. And I guess at this point we can't call it fluky, because this is what we kind of always get with Phil Foden, which is a player who is central to the attack, involved in. I mean, he's a little bit like Jack Grealish, I suppose, right? Just an incredibly important cog in Man City's attack, but just not necessarily the player who gets the fantasy returns, which is what we're looking for on this here pod.
Yeah, he's had a great season. I mean, his performance against Newcastle was one of my favorite performances IRL of the season. But we have to stop trying to make him work as a fantasy asset.
Yeah, I think that's right. We have to, and he's expensive. It's not like he's some 6 million, whatever.
Yeah.
And then finally, Mitoma. I suppose he's properly rated because his ownership is 43.4%. It feels like this is a community versus overall. Like, overall, he's highly owned. You have to call him properly rated. 3 goals and 3 assists, 6.6 million. I think maybe in the kind of the community team thing I was talking about before, I think he's probably a little underrated because it's been such a tough fixture run for Brighton. And I think that's maybe they haven't had just when they had the nice run at the start of the season, he was really excellent. Let's see. He had attacking returns in 3 of his first 4 matches to start the season, right before the first break, and is blanked in 2 of the last 3. But again, in the one really good match, the Bournemouth home match, came off the bench and got 14 points. So I guess but again, it's Liverpool and Man City in the next 2. From there, the schedule really opens up, and they've got a nice run. So I'm going to call him. He's I guess I'll just call him properly rated, maybe underrated a little bit in the FPL kind of in community.
Yeah, I think properly rated is where I'd land. He's not benefiting from, there's just a high degree of chaos at Brighton at the moment, which I think they're thriving with the chaos, but there's been some rotation. Results have been crazy, as we talked at length about at the start of the pod. Yeah. So I feel like Mitoma is in danger of being forgotten about by some managers. And I still haven't had him yet at all this season, and I always fear him whenever he's on the pitch. And I hope to own him at some point, but I am not. He doesn't feel like I have to have him.
No, and it won't be at least for the next couple of weeks. That's for sure. I think, they're such a chaos team right now with this Brighton. I mean, just the fact they have not kept a single clean sheet so far this season is wild. Which does bring us to Estupiñán. 1 goal, 3 assists, 0 clean sheets, 59.9% owned. I have to say, because they're not quite defensively sound enough, Brendan, I think we have to call them a little overrated. Estupiñán, as much as I love watching him play. From a fantasy perspective, again.
I totally agree. You have to go like halfway down the first page of scoring defenders on the fantasy site to get to Estupiñán. And I think we talk about him on this podcast like he's A+ number 1. Yeah. And, suddenly Trippier is with a couple of good game weeks. It's just eating his lunch. So, it's a shame. He's... With his price tag, he's not a concern. Like you don't need to offload him, and you love to see an out of position defender, which he is often just like playing so far forward. But on the whole, overrated.
Because if you're trying to get like a Salah or even just a Son, Odegaard, like a kind of expensive midfield and forward line, the 0.5 million or so that you can save moving him to like a Matty Cash. Mm-hmm. Where it's like you don't get the attacking returns, but you're probably quite a bit more likely to get a clean sheet. Might be worth it. So it's definitely something to think about for anyone who's on a wild card this week. Joachim Anderson,
Joachim, I think is how it goes.
Joachim Anderson. It's 4.7 million, 2 goals, 3 assists. 2 goals, not 3 assists. 2 goals, 3 clean sheets. 10.3% team selected by. I have to give a little shout out to FPL Hints here, Brandon, because he pointed out that he is the 7th highest point scorer on the season. A Crystal Palace central defender, and of course it's like maybe a little bit fluky, but still, the fact that he is so cheap that Palace have impressed defensively. They look very strong. I mean, did you get any takeaways from watching that Palace Man United match yesterday? Like, were you any thoughts on Palace?
They struggle on the attack big time. Was my takeaway. I mean, having to start Mateta up front was new for them. I think that might have been his first start this season, so that didn't help. Injured. Yeah, and Eze looked bright, but he just is not destroying teams. He can't do it alone. So they look like a really great yet somewhat incomplete squad, and they're very fortunate that they can rely on a really solid defense, excluding Ward, who is like, it's a miracle that guy still gets minutes. But Sam Johnstone, still incredible keeper. So I like them. I mean, I think they'll finish top 10 with the bullet this season.
How many seasons do you think that Joel Ward has been in the Premier League for, if you just had to guess?
Maybe like 11.
12.
Whew.
So there you
Close.
go. Now that starts in 2009, 2010, and then there is a 3-year gap, and I think that's because Palace didn't come up until 2013. So there you go. So it should be even longer. Actually, Joel Ward should be he should be a 14-year veteran. Brent is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he plays like it.
Kieran Trippier might be underrated just on this podcast. Not anymore, though. Let's say, actually, that's what we're going to call him. We're going to call him properly rated in general, underrated on this podcast. But now we have joined the crew of the properly rated. It's just so easy for him to get attacking returns. I think that's what it is. There's just a lot of big, tall guys and players who can score, and it's just easy for him. And the defense is good, so even if he doesn't get an attacking return, it's just easy for him to get a clean sheet, and that alone probably makes him worth owning.
Now, the assist he got this weekend, we should be clear, was he tackled the crap out of some no-named Burnley, non-controlled player, and that led to the Almiron assist. So it wasn't like a classic set piece or ping cross. He tackled the ball to Almiron, but the points are the points, and we respect them all the same. Let's properly rate this man. Give him his flowers.
One last player to go. We did talk about Bern Leno. So I will end things here, Brandon, with Kyle Walker, 5.3 million. Most importantly, has started all Man City matches so far this season. 0 goals, 3 assists, which is actually kind of a high return for him in terms of attacking returns. 3 clean sheets as well, and only 16.5% ownership. I think that he's pretty clearly the just because Gvardiol kind of surprisingly has not been able to hold down a starting spot.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Premier League. Yeah, I don't get that either. But I think Walker is the one who doesn't have as much competition for a spot, especially the way that Pep will kind of move around the kind of bank. He'll do like a back three sometimes. He'll do like more of a four at the back and stuff. But there's kind of always a spot for Walker, it seems like, in the formations that he puts out there. So I think that he has to be slightly underrated at this point.
I kind of want this to be the one where we disagree, and I want to call him overrated. But it's like when my cat bites me and clearly doesn't know what she's doing. I don't know why it is that I want to call him overrated. It just feels good and natural to me.
It does. I know it does. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Kyle Walker, speaking of the Kyle Walker versus Joel Ward competition, Brendan, Kyle Walker is in his 15th season in the Premier League. So
legend.
He started the same year as Joel Ward, but Joel Ward got those. He did not have those 3 years in the championship the way Ward did. So,
this is like, it's more of a meta conversation with Walker because he's a great player. We much respect to the man, but it gets to the larger conundrum of Man City defense always having the best defensive stats in the league, but just being wildly disappointing as fantasy owners.
Yeah, you could argue that all Man City defenders are overrated. I think that you could make a case. You can make a case for that for sure. All right, well let's move on, Brandon. Let's take one last break here, and then we'll take a quick look at game week 8.
Same old podcast, always cheating.
All right, we're back. Game week 8 kicks off with Luton Spurs on Saturday morning. That'll be Luton's third match in 8 days. I don't know if that. It's not like they're going to be like chopping and changing too much, so you could see some tired legs. I know you're still in a wild card. You don't know quite what your team's going to look like, but is there a chance that you'll be giving the captaincy to a player on Spurs for this match?
Potentially, but it's the age-old. I don't want a captain in the first fixture of the game week. It is away from home, even though kind of Luton is. Are Luton still the best worst fixture to target, or is it Sheffield United? Sheffield United seem to be emerging as just like, I don't want to be around anymore type of club.
Burnley, I don't know, the Burnley, what's his name getting the red card was a real
Lyle Foster. Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
If I end up with Salah, I think that's an interesting opportunity if you're looking to not go Haaland, you would go Salah instead of Son, because as you've noted with the Stupinan, Brighton cannot keep a clean sheet to save their lives. And Brighton just got absolutely done by Villa. And the case I was making for the Haaland captaincy to you a couple days ago was just like, this is going to be a punching match. And often these matches go one of two ways, where it becomes like tactical mastermind versus tactical mastermind, and no one gets close to scoring a goal for 75 minutes. Or City will have 3 goals within the first 20 minutes because Arsenal, they would prefer to be a little bit more expansive and pressing. And if City play well, which they haven't in the last couple of weeks, they could score them. So, does City's form concern you at all here?
A little bit. I think the champ. Maybe it's like it's hard to say before we see the Champions League matches this week, right? Like maybe Man City just demolish somebody. Is it that get their going to back reset a little bit. I don't know. I mean, we could also see some injuries. It does feel like a week to hold on your transfers just to be safe. Again, there's another advantage for Salah, I suppose, that he, even though Liverpool are in the Europa League so far, he hasn't really been playing in those matches, nor has he been playing in the Carabao Cup. He's basically like a Premier League specialist this season, which is kind of like the dream with him. So yeah, I think Salah's an interesting case. I hadn't actually really thought about him as a potential option, but I think that makes sense. It's like I hate that the Spurs Luton match is the first match. There's something about that for me. It's like psychologically, I do not like captaining somebody for the early fixture. It's just if it doesn't go well, I'm just in such a bad place for the next 36 hours. But I think you could certainly make an extremely strong case for Maddison too, even though we kind of neither of us could quite get there. I think just objectively, you could make a case that they're going to score 2 or 3 goals in that match, and there's an extremely good chance that he's involved in those goals, at least 2 of them, right? It's like the floor for Maddison seems pretty high this week. It's hard for me to imagine him not getting some kind of attacking return. And then, Son did go off with a little bit of an injury. I don't know, like he's been kind of battling a little something. He should be fine, and we'll certainly know more by Saturday, but I guess there's a little bit of an injury concern there with him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he and Matto looked quite ecstatic when the final whistle blew.
I'm sure they're fine.
He was
just noting.
We've been so preoccupied with all these flags. I mean, relax with the flags, FPL site. We can't handle it emotionally.
We've gone flag crazy. Exactly. Now you wouldn't consider Bruno or Rashford. Brandon,
get out of here! I am so sick of the sight of these guys.
Rashford is in trouble. They'll be fine ultimately, but man, they're in a troubled spot right now.
I don't know if they'll be fine. I think that's really what the conversation has turned to, is really amongst Man United fans, like really introspective, like, yikes, we've got cancer, and we don't know how to cure this, because it's been going on for a decade at this point, and no amount of players or managers can fix it.
It's crazy, isn't it? And they've had all this bad luck with the forwards, and now the Greenwood. Listen, the Mason Greenwood situation is a whole separate. But regardless, it's not like Man United. That's just they were unlucky in the sense that they lost a talented young player, and Antony being out now as well, and so there's been a lot of chaos there, and it does feel like it's like they can get a Champions League spot, and then it's but it's hard to keep that. Anyway, listen, that's talk about something you could talk about for an hour. The Man United thing is its own separate pod, but I think
60 minutes,
and that was a bad, exactly. I made the joke, I created this situation, but I think I actually think it's a tricky week for the captaincy. If you don't go for a Spurs pick, you might as well. If going and I'm like the wasabi.
No, we got to talk
lady.
It through. It's like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire,
Yeah, I'm just talking it through. You could argue that it is a good week to go a little off the board with a pick, but I also think that Haaland is fine, and he will probably destroy Arsenal. That's what I would. I'd expect them to be up for this match. It seems like they're always a little. I think because the spine of this team was built on a Man City manager and Man City players, right? At least, obviously Arteta did play for Arsenal, but they brought a bunch of players over from. Was it just 2? I guess it was just 2, right? It's just Zinchenko.
Yeah, Zinchenko and Jesus. Trying to think of any others.
I guess
it's Rice's team now. Anyway, it's more of a West Ham team.
It's Declan Rice's team. Yeah, exactly. So I think, but it does seem like they're just always, maybe also because Arsenal are contenders, and so they're just always a little more up for that match. Man City losing to Wolves was great from a table narrative standpoint. There's only 1 point now separating them from Spurs and Arsenal, which is pretty cool. Liverpool only 1 point back from them as well. So I would love. I think everybody would love a title race, but you also just have to kind of accept that the title race is enjoy it as long as it lasts, right? Do not expect a title race in game week 37, but if it's a title race in game week 20, that's not too early. It's fun. It's fun to look at the table right now after 7 weeks and see who's up there, right? It's just fun. So, all right. Well, that's, I haven't talked too much about my transfer this week because I actually can't quite figure out what I'm going to do. I might just ultimately hold, honestly, because I just can't. I can't see a transfer that makes complete sense unless I moved Saka to if I moved Saka to Son, and then maybe captain Son, that would be one move. But I just don't see moving Saka as a worthwhile long-term transfer. And so I might just have to suck it up, not have Son for one match, and hope that he doesn't come back to haunt me. That's usually the right way to play, in my opinion. You should not do a kind of fear-based 1 week transfer in general.
Take it from me. Usually if it's the early kickoff, it doesn't matter, if you don't have a certain player. Because if they go off, it's not like they're going to go off for 3 goals and 2 assists. That never happens.
Well, also, but you're in a good mood right now, and hope springs eternal, and you still got another Carlton Morris match to go. So let's see what happens.
What will I do if Morris actually meets?
I'd love it too. I mean, I've got Morris myself.
But I have to do something to commemorate that. So if you have any ideas of something crazy but legal I could do to commemorate Carlton Morris inevitably exceeding Watkins' return this game week, please get at me.
Maybe we'll do like a commemorative T-shirt or something like that, Brian. A commemorative mug, commemorative pint glass. All right, thanks everyone for listening this week. Oh, Brian, we didn't do our XDIH, X Dog and Him of the week, brought to you by the hit movie Strays. I think you nailed it. I think he needs a little more shine. So let's go with Bernd Leno at home to Sheffield United.
He's got that dog in him. Brought to you by the hit movie Strays.
I think he keeps clean sheet. Maybe he has a long ball. Maybe he gets an assist this week, Brandon. Let's see what happens there.
Just Leno, get out there and chuck it as far and as hard as you can and turn it into fantasy gold dust.
Exactly. Do you have a XDIH this week?
I was thinking, and you brought him up earlier in the show, Dominic Solanke, and I think Everton are ripe for the pick in there. And I want to see Big Dong. I want to see Big Dom, Big Dong in a big way. And
he'd be a fun transfer. Morris to Solanke could be a fun one, Brandon. Maybe you've talked me into it because it's a nice little run for them. It's like a 3-week run. It's not a great run, but Everton, Wolves, Burnley. There was a little bit of an injury worry with him, but he played 90 in the Arsenal match, so he must be fine, Brandon. Darn it, he must be fine.
Yeah, I think so.
Like you said, too many flags going on right now. The world's gone flag crazy. All right, well, I'll talk more about my transfer on Thursday. We'll talk more about Brandon's wild card as well. So lots more to discuss. If you want to support the podcast and learn more about the wild card, just chat with the cheaters and our Patreon supporters, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. You can find out more about everything, all the different pledge tiers there. And if you're at the higher levels, we also do have, we talked about commemorative mugs a second ago, but we do have commemorative mugs for people at the Volkswagen and producer tiers. Brennan, do you want to thank our producer supporters?
As always, big thanks to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wild Mings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Vulgar Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Paul Herzig, Heath Cram, Thomas Tisloff, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Julio Pena, Linus Vennerstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Fro Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, and Ben Coombs. Now, Ben actually wrote to us after we had some fun with his name, and I think he suggested it was definitely Coombs. So
wait, we better confirm this. Hold on, I've got it here in the introduction section. It's hold on, I gotta pull it up here because Coombs,
nailed it.
Coombs, Cooms, like Carrie Coombs, Brandon, the beloved actress. He didn't say that. That's me, but I'm making it easy for our listeners.
You're obviously the big Coombs head on the podcast. We know it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah. So patreon.com/alwayscheating, as Josh mentioned. If you don't want to join Patreon, that's not your thing. Things you can do for free to support the podcast. Just rate us, review us wherever you get your podcast, and never miss an episode by subscribing. Follow us wherever you get your social media, and visit our website, alwayscheating.com. for all of this information and more. That's a wrap.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck this week. Bye.
There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform that you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because Indeed does the hard work for you. They show you the candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post so you can hire faster. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports, and support the show by saying that you heard it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.